Hello students and welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Shefali Nagpal, Associate Professor at Human Resource Development Center, Bhagat Phool Singh Mahila Vishwavidyalaya, Sonipat. We are studying the paper Development of the Management Thoughts, Principles and Types under Human Resource Management. Today we will discuss the theories of communication. On the completion of this module, you would be able to understand the various theories of communication, able to learn the communication theory framework and also understand the classical theories of communication. Now let us begin with the various theories of communication. The theories presented here are related to communication. You can use these theories as a rich source for better understanding of the theoretical fieldwork of communication. Choosing a theory for an assignment or the report is made easier since you are able to browse through all the different theories. All the theories are selected and used in the course of communication studies. Stay critical when you use a theory because theories are subjectively measured. A lot of theories are mentioned below. Make your own judgment about which theories can help you and think why they are helpful. A theory that deals with the technology of transmission of information as through the written word or a computer between the people and the machine, machines and machines. There are some sense of impact of telecommunication and computerization. Almost all writers have gone on in line with something by now after all. But few of these fictions seems shaped in any serious way by information or communication theory. As said by the Robert Cover in the New York Times book review on 18th March 1984, Ms. Metzer said that the three major trends that supervisors found most disturbing were the emphasis on the faculty members with academic rather than the journalistic experience, the elimination of journalism as a standalone major and increased emphasis on communication theories at the expense of the basic reporting and writing skills. Let us study the communication theory known as actor network theory, popularly called ANT. It suggests that human and non-human factors are equally influential in the success of the technological innovation and scientific knowledge creation. The theory looks at how networks are formed and how these networks contribute to these successes. It suggests that no person or the thing is solely responsible for these advancements. Therefore, both an actor and the network are responsible for achieving these outcomes. Another theory is adaptive structural theory. AST. Groups and organization create rules and resources which are defined as structures. These structures form social system which develop a life of their own. The quality of the structure affect decision making. The decisions affect the structure again. Agenda setting theory. It states that mass media organization determines what the general population considers newsworthy by deciding how much attention a news story receives. The term salience transfer is commonly used and refer to the ability of the media to transfer their agenda onto the public. Another theory is cognitive dissonance theory. This theory is the psychological conflict that results from holding two contradictory or incompatible beliefs and attitude. For example, one can like a person but disapprove their habits. The theory suggests that a person looks for a balance in their beliefs. Therefore, in order to reduce the dissonance, one will avoid hearing opposing viewpoints or change their beliefs to match their actions. Another theory is communication accommodation theory. The communication accommodation theory describes when people accommodate or adjust with their communication styles to others. These changes in verbal and non-verbal styles are done through two ways. One is divergence, another is convergence. Divergence is used to highlight the group of identity through touting the differences of the group they identify with. Divergence is often used by the groups with strong ethnic and racial pride. Conversion is used more often by the powerless individual for social approval and focuses on matching the communication style of the person whom they are speaking to. Confirmation bias. The confirmation bias is a theory which explains why people view the world selectively. It states that people continue to view the world selectively by choosing the information and the media which reinforces their beliefs. Another theory is Constructivism. The people who are more cognitively complex will be more successful communicators because they possess the ability to create customized and sophisticated messages that pursue multiple communication goals. Cultivation Theory. It argues media shapes a person's sense of reality because many acquire the information through the media sources rather than the direct experience. Their world view becomes influenced by these sources. For example, cultivation theory suggests that people who would be denied as heavy television viewers see the world as more violent than it actually is. Cultural studies. Cultural study theorists suggest that mass media represent ideologies of the dominant class in a society. They believe that media is influenced by profit since corporations run the media. Cultural studies theories are curious about the effect of power on culture. Dramatism. Dramatism states that life is drama. Therefore, one can understand a speaker's motive through the dramatist pentad of act, scene, agent, agency or purpose. The greatest motive of rhetoric is to purge guilt, and there can be persuasion if the audience identifies with the speaker. Elaboration likelihood model. The elaboration likelihood model looks at how attitudes are formed and changed. It suggests that there are two routes of persuasion. The central route, where the attitudes are changed through a logical thought process. This route requires more attention, but also allows for the major change. The peripheral route uses the surface characteristics such as speaker's credibility to judge the message. This route creates smaller shift in attitude. Face negotiation theory. It highlights the conflict styles differences between collectivist and individualistic cultures. Collectivist culture place value on the group and therefore adopt a conflict style of avoiding or integrating to give others mutual face. Individualistic cultures place value on the individual and in attempt to protect self-face, they adopt a dominating conflicting style. Framing. Frames are defined as a way in which we interpret media presented to us, and that these frames function as a way to organize the social meaning. Since media decide what we view and how we view it, they also influence the way in which we interpret information. In a sense, they tell us what to think about and how to think about it. Genderlect. This theory sees masculine and feminine communication styles as two different cultural dialects, neither of which is more superior than the other. Genderlect states that these forms of communication are simply different in their focus. Masculine discourse is based on building status and independence, while feminine conversation is used as a way to build rapport and connection. Groupthink. Groupthink is when groups make faulty decisions because they fail to critically analyze their options and weigh alternatives. This typically occurs in highly cohesive groups who are more concerned with maintaining group unity than finding the best option. Hypodermic needle theory. Hypodermic needle theory, also known as the magic bullet theory, says that media has a powerful and direct effect on the audiences by injecting them with the messages. The hypodermic needle theory no longer carries the respect it once did since its accuracy was found to be questionable. Muted group theory. It states that because language is man-made, women remain reduced and excluded. Because words and norms have been created by men, women are disadvantaged in the public. As women become less muted and more vocal, the dominant position of males in the society will diminish. The narrative paradigm. The narrative paradigm suggests that we as a people are storytelling animals. It states that instead of using traditional logic, we are more open to judging the credibility of the speaker through the narrative logic, which analyzes if their stories were well put together and sound true. Narrative logic allows those who are not educated in oratory and persuasion to make judgments, therefore allowing for a more democratic system. Priming. It refers to the ability of the media to control the interpretation of the new information by feeding the public prior information. This prior context set frames of reference within the audience member, which ultimately affects their judgment. For example, the media has primed us as to what constitutes a credible person. Proxemix. This theory looks at how different cultures develop and define space. On an unconscious level, people internalize three types of space. One is intimate space, our personal bubble for friends and intimate relationships. Second, social and consultative spaces, the space for the routine social interaction with acquaintances and strangers. Third is public space. This space is where impersonal and anonymous interactions occur. Each culture creates their own distances for what they feel is appropriate. Social exchange theory. This theory is of the economic exchange for interpersonal relationship viewpoint, meaning relationship is enhanced by satisfying each other's self-interest. In this theory, self-interest is not regarded as a bad thing, but rather as a concept that builds the relationship. Social learning theory. It argues that people learn from each other through observing, imitating, and modeling the behavior, attitude, and emotion reactions of others. Social learning theory explains how human behavior can be shaped by continuous reciprocal interaction between the cognitive, behavioral, and environmental influences. Social penetration theory. This theory looks at how superficial relationships evolved to intimate relationships. The theory states it is a gradual evolution due primarily to self-discourse between parties. But while this self-discourse can be effective in creating intimate relationship, this can also leave one or more person vulnerable. Spiral of silence. This theory states that people are less likely to express their opinion if they are the minority. This is because they fear that they will be isolated by the majority and suffer social rejection. Standpoint theory. This theory claims that each person is seated in a different rank among the social hierarchy. Because of this, each person views the social climate from a different vantage point, which only provides a small look at the social whole. But the theory also claims that those who are lower in the social ladder tend to have a greater understanding of the social whole rather than those at the higher up. Symbolic interactionism theory. This theory suggests the concept of self is created by the three principles. Firstly, meaning, that is, we act towards and think according to the meaning we apply to them. Second, language, that is, we negotiate meaning through symbols. Third, thought, the thought modifies our interpretations. Symbolic interactionism implies that without communication there would be no self-concept. Theory of planned behavior. The theory of the planned behavior is same as theory of reasoned action in that is say personal attitudinal judgments and social normative consideration influence a person's intention to perform a behavior. But this theory adds a third element, that is perceived behavioral control. This element being the perception of how easy or difficult it is to perform the behavior. Theory of reasoned action. The theory of reasoned action look at how behaviors can be influenced by influencing a person's intention. It states that two main factors tell a person whether or not to perform a behavior. One is personal attitudinal judgment, that is the evaluation of the action, and secondly, social normative consideration, what ones believe other things they should do. Uncertainty reduction theory. This theory states when the stranger meet, their primary goal is to reduce the level of uncertainty. Uncertainty meaning here is being unsure of how to behave, unsure of what to think of the other person. For example, if they like the person or they do not like the person, according to this theory, they will use communication to reduce this uncertainty. Uses and gratification theory. This theory assumes audiences actively seek out media to satisfy individual needs. With this assumption, the uses and gratification theory looks to answer three questions. One is what to do with the media, what are their underlying motives for using said media, and third, what are the pros and cons of this individual media use. Communication theory framework. Let us examine communication and communication theory through the following viewpoints. 1. Mechanistic. The mechanistic viewpoint says that communication is simply the transmission of information from the first party to the second party, the first party being the sender and the second party being the receiver. Second is psychological. According to the psychological viewpoint, communication is simply not the flow of information from the sender to the receiver, but actually the thoughts, the feelings of the sender which he tries to share with the recipients. It also includes the reactions, feelings of the receiver after he decodes the information. Then is social. The social viewpoint considers communication as a result of interaction between the sender and the receiver. It simply says that communication is directly dependent on the content of the speech. How one communicates is the basis of the social viewpoint. Fourth is systematic. The systematic viewpoint says that communication is actually a new and different message which is created when various individuals interpret in their own way and then reinterpret it and draw their own conclusions. Next is critical. The critical viewpoint says that communication is simply a way with the help of which an individual expresses his power and authority among the other individuals. The study of communication and mass media has led to the formulation of many theories. Structural and functional theories believe that social structure are real and function in a way that can be observed objectively. Cognitive and behavioral theories tend to focus on the psychology of the individuals. Interactionist theories view social life as a process of interaction. Interpretive theories uncover the ways the people actually understand their own experiences. Critical theories are concerned with the conflict of interest in the society and the way communication perpetuates domination of one group over another. The earliest theories were those propounded by the Western theorists Seibert, Peterson and Sharam in the book Four Theories of the Press, 1956. These were termed normative theories by Macquail in the sense that they mainly express the idea of how the media ought to or can be expected to operate under the prevailing set of conditions and values. Each of the four original or classical theories is based on particular political theory or economic scenario. Now let us study the classical theories of communication. One is authoritarian theory. According to this theory, the state cannot control the mass media. Under an authoritarian approach in Western Europe, freedom of thought was jealously criticized and controlled by rulers who were concerned with the emergence of the new middle class and were worried about the effect of printed matter on their thought process. They tried to control the freedom of expression. The result was advocacy of complete dictatorship. The voice of subordinate always controlled by the superior, that is why they did not respect their superiors. Censorship of the press was justified on the ground that the state always looked precedence over the individual's right to freedom of expression. This theory, advocated by the authoritarian philosophy of Plato, who thought that the state was safe only in the hands of few wise men. Thomas Hobbes, a British academician, argued that the power to maintain order was sovereign and individual objections were to be ignored, means the individual does not have any right to oppose the instruction given by the authority. Engel, a German thinker, further reinforced the theory by stating that freedom came into its supreme right only under authoritarianism. The world has been the witness to authoritarian means of control over media by both dictatorial and democratic governments. Next is free press theory. This movement was based on the right of an individual and advocated absence of restraint. The basis of this theory dated back to 17th century England when the printing press initially established. It was possible to print several copies of the book or pamphlet at the cheap rates. The state was thought as a major source of interference on the rights of an individual and his property. Libertarians regarded taxation as institutional theft. Popular will was granted precedence over the power of state. Lao Tzu advocated this theory in the early 16th century philosopher John Locke of Great Britain in the 17th century, John Milton, the epic poet, and the John Stuart Mill, an essayist. Milton in Europae Judicia in 1644 referred to as self-writing process if free expression is permitted. Let truth and falsehood grapple. In 1789, the French, in their Declaration of the Rights of Man, wrote, "Every citizen may speak, write and publish freely." Out of such doctrine came the idea of the free citizen may speak, write and publish freely. Of such doctrines came the idea of a free marketplace of ideas. George Orwell defined libertarianism as allowing people to say things you do not want to hear. They argued that the press should be seen as the fourth estate reflecting public opinion. Next is the social responsibility theory. The press theory was criticized by the Wilbur, Seibert, Theodore, and many others. In their book, Four Theories of the Press, they stated pure libertarianism is acquainted, outdated, and obsolete. They demanded for its replacement by the social responsibility theory. Applied in the United States by the Commission of the Freedom of Press in 1949, the Commission found that the free market approach to press freedom had only increased the power of the single class and has not served the interest of the less well-off classes, while the social responsibility theory is concerned with the major part of the society. The emergence of the radio, TV, film suggested the need for some means of accountability. Thus, the theory advocated some obligation on the part of media to the society. The judicial mix of self-regulation and the state regulation and the high professional standards were imperative. Then it became the modern variation in which the duty to one's conscience was primary basis of the right of free expression. Another is the communist theory. This theory derived from the ideologies of the Marx and Engels that the ideas of ruling classes are the ruling ideas. It was thought that the entire mass media was saturated with the bourgeois ideology. Lenin thought of private ownership as being incompatible with the freedom of press and that modern technology means of information must be controlled for enjoying effective freedom of press. This theory advocated that the sole purpose of mass media is to educate the great masses of workers and not to give out information. The public was encouraged to give feedback as it was the only way the media would be able to cater to its interests. Two more theories were later added as four theories of the press were not fully applicable to the non-aligned countries of Asia, Africa, and Latin America, who were committed to the social and economic development on their own terms. Development communication theory. The important fact behind the genesis of this theory was that there can be no development without communication. Under the four classical theories, capitalism was legitimized, but under the development communication theory or development support communication, as it is otherwise called, the media undertook the role of carrying out positive developmental programs, accepting restrictions and instructions from the state. The media subordinated themselves to political, economic, social and cultural needs. Hence, the stress on communication development and journalism development. There was a tactic support from the UNESCO for this theory. The weakness of this theory is that the development is often equated with the government propaganda. The next theory was the democratic participant media theory. This theory opposes the commercialization of the media, modern media, and its top-down, non-participant character. The need for access and right to communicate is stressed. Bureaucratic control of media is reduced. Let us summarize what we have studied in this module. We have studied the various theories of communication. It is a process of summarizing, assessing and developing the communication system, which is viewed on the basis of different communication technique to send or to receive the message, to act or react according to the requirement of job. That is all, students. Thank you.